Thanks for that, all three of you. Um, so we go into the last, but certainly not the least. Promises to be an interesting session. And the session is titled Leadership Insights. And for that, I would like to invite the panelists, starting with Kaleeswaran Arunachalam, Group CFO and Head of Strategy, Crompton Greaves Consumer Electricals. Can we have an applause for Kaleeswaran Arunachalam? He's a dynamic finance executive currently serving as the Group CFO and Head of Strategy at Crompton Greaves Consumer Electricals Limited. Thank you, Kaleeswaran, for joining us. Ajay Wadhwa. Ajay Wadhwa, Chief Executive Officer, TML Business Services, Tata Motors. Ajay Wadhwa is the Chief Executive Officer for TML Business Services, a subsidiary of Tata Motors. He is achievement-driven, with over 20 years of experience in business and process transformation, delivering value-added services across end-to-end processes, change management across geographies, and system implementation. Thank you, Ajay, for joining us. Tarun Aahi. Tarun Aahi, VP and Head, Group SSC, Jindal Steel and Power Limited. Tarun is a chartered accountant by profession and a change leader by nature. He's an enterprising business leader with a perfect blend of consulting and operation. Tarun Aahi. Can we have an applause for Tarun? Sushil Kedia. Sushil Kedia, Chief Operating Officer, Business Delivery Center, Tata Steel. Sushil is a prominent figure in the realm of global business services, currently serving as the Chief Operating Officer of Tata Steel Business Delivery Center Limited. Thank you, Sushil, for being here. Richard Alvares, VP, Head Program and Business Transformation, Shared Service, Ultratech Cement. Richard is a seasoned executive with over 26 plus years of experience, currently serving as the Vice President, Head Program and Business Transformation Shared Services at Ultratech, a part of the Aditya Birla Group. And the session will be moderated by Anand Maheshwari, Founder and Chief Commercial Officer, Quintess Global. There is Anand. So it's over to you, Anand, to take that ahead.
Just testing. Is the voice clear backside also? Thank you. Because while I was sitting there, sometimes the lapel mic was not as efficient as the hand mic was. So anyways, good afternoon, good evening to every one of you. We are at the pre-award final technical session. So kudos to each of you who is still present and actively listening to all of us from the stage here. I salute and admire you all. It's never an easy job to do this with the dwindling audience for whatever reason, but we are making up for that, or more than making up for that, what I can safely say, the most powerful panel that we have had on the stage in last 1.5 days. What else can you ask for when you have all the stalwarts on my right side, representing the names that are household names, in India definitely, but across globe also. So there are two Tatas, both Tisco and as we used to call Telco, now Tata Motors. And we have Birlas here, represented through Richard Alvares. And we have upcoming very, very Indian mark of entrepreneurship of the last 25 years in the form of Jindal. Jindal Steels is here. And then we have a unique Indian company, absolutely unique Indian company, which is 100% owned by employees. Indian company in its own right, of its own size, that is Crompton Greaves Currently, employee-owned, employee-operated. We have all heard these terms called COCO and POPO, company-owned, company-operated, partner-owned, partner-operated, or FOFO, franchisee-owned, franchisee-operated. So this is the variety and depth in the panel that we have got. Hence, here is the audience, your chance to make the best out of the session. So I'm changing the pattern a little bit. I'm requesting anyone from you who wants to talk of his or her expectations from this panel or this session, which is essentially talking of leadership insights from those very Indian corporations who took the plunge in the field of consolidating their shared services, converting them into capability centers in many cases, and still doing it. So your chance. So can we have the mic in the room, please? Anyone, please raise your hand. I will take 3 or 4 at the maximum. Your expectations from the panelists in the next 40 minutes.
Hello, everybody. I know most of you guys. So, quick question. I think unlike the global organizations or where the HQs are outside of India, and then you have the main advantage used to be a cost arbitrage, or I would rather say it's a currency arbitrage, where you have significant play to justify the value to go up the value chain. In case of the domestic HQ and domestically operated operations for the GCCs, I think it's not easy when you move roles from Ajay, maybe from Dharwad to Pune or somewhere, and then still justify the value. So I think this is something which is a nuance which a lot of people would not understand. But in spite of having zero to minimum to less cost arbitrage, the clear path forward is creating value and transformation. So I think what would be some of your insights that you bring in to help that?
Very much, Sandeep. That will be definitely part of that. Anything else somebody wants to add to that? Any specific expectations upfront that you want to table? Otherwise, there will be always an opportunity to ask the questions towards the end of the session also.
Hello, everyone. Very quick one. We talk about GCC, we talk about the processes and things like that. It would be very insightful to say, how do we bring global roles in India in GCCs that we operate?
Sorry, say that again. How do we?
Bring global roles within GCCs.
Global roles into the GCCs. Okay. Anything more? With the lights on, I can't see much. Okay, so here I would like to start by saying that this is truly the moment of when the rubber meets the road kind of thing. When you start an initiative literally with the hands tied on your back. You don't have the starting point of a straight cost arbitrage, which could be very significant in any case of taking out work or processes and creating from high-cost locations into a relatively low-cost location. So that arbitrage advantage is not the starting point. Still, you take a plunge, consolidate, and there is a huge benefit that almost all these Indian corporations we took that plunge have proven. And we will hear a lot of stories around that. So, but we all know, and I was expecting that kind of things to come from the floor also, the nuances of managing Indian businesses. Okay, there is a saying that if you have cracked India, then you have achieved a lot of depth in your operations, whether in business or in any other field. because we are such a wide, such a variety, such a complicated country in many senses, and still we are unified as a one nation. So that way, the uniqueness of India and Indian business and Indian management ethos and all that. And then look at it from another angle. The entire structure of these Indian corporations, most of them started with entrepreneurial families that set up large businesses, medium to large businesses, or the businesses which became large as we progressed economically. And the management practices also evolved around that. So there has been, in most cases, ultimately the buck stopped at the so-called promoters level. That is the case even now in many cases. But having said that, with the evolution, while the ownership structures have also evolved, publicly traded, publicly owned organizations, the management ethos at some level are still very Indian, very people-focused, very much loyalty-oriented management ethos where sometimes a low performer, relatively low performer, can also claim to be rewarded just because he or she has something going for him or her which is called loyalty and trust. So those are also the factors. During taking care of all these special circumstances, there have been cases proven by all the gentlemen on my right who have, at various stages of their journey, proven that this globally proven model can be as effective, if not more, in the context of Indian businesses. So, without much ado, and before I turn to all this, let me also, you must already be seen it, but I think another unique thing about my panelists is that 4 out of 5 of them represent relatively mature organizations from a shared services perspective. They took this plunge 10, 15, 20 years ago, almost immediately after this whole wave started in India. So they did not wait for too long, for whatever reason. But at the same time, we also have colleagues here who are just telling me that they're just celebrating their first anniversary of their shared services. So they're as young as that in terms of this initiative. So in that context, there are 2 or 3 pointers that I would like my colleagues on the panel to cover as I go around. And, you know, we do have reasonable time. I don't think time at this moment looks too much of a constraint to us or to me, is that you should just give your views on 3 or 4 specific things. What does this catalytic transformation mean to you? Because that is the one element of our agenda topic. Then, since we're all Indian organizations fundamentally, even though global operations in many cases, what is the level of enthusiasm for this kind of initiative that you have seen and you still see currently at the topmost level of the organization, whether it be the board or in some cases the promoter himself? What is the kind of seat at the table issue that you have faced in the past, and currently what is the situation, if at all you have faced that issue, because we used to hear about that. And how are you scaling new frontiers, specifically for my matured organizations, I would like to say, that how do we have enabled the operations into capabilities or capabilities-driven operations? So capabilities point. So whosoever, I mean, let's first start with Kalees. That may be simpler.
Okay, thank you. I think it's very tough to do a session on December Friday evening on a beachside, and that too as a last panel. So really understand the task that is on hand, and we'll try to make it as interesting as possible. Thanks, Anand, for the introduction. I think we are employee run. Interestingly, we don't have a promoter or an MNC, nor we are a conglomerate. We are a billion-dollar organization, and when we talked about a catalyzing or a catalytic transformation that this needs to do, maybe I'll try to summarize in how did we approach and how are we looking at it right now as we celebrate our first anniversary. It starts with a vision. I think we need to have really a bold ambition of what is that we want to do. It need not be only cost-led. Do see cost as an outcome and not cost as the only driver for which you need to set up a GCC or a capability center. Have to have a large, bold goal. Needs to be backed up by the leadership. I think we are employer-run, so we have a cross-functional leadership team. We ensured that it's a cross-shared purpose across everyone, and then we started. Third, fundamentally, while this entire thing started with finance as the first function to go ahead, from day one, we are very clear, we are not even going to call it as a finance shared service or something, we named it as central business service. Few nuances, I think people in corporates or in a company like us, which is not a conglomerate, might feel taking them to a shared service means you're trying to do jobs that are not valuable to you and it is very transactional in nature. So we named it as central business service. The idea is that it is not going to be only finance, it's going to be at an organizational level. Starts with finance, it will follow up with sales, procurement, even at some point of time our R&D, transactional work we want to move here. We said business, idea is that it is not a transaction process, but it's going to be a business service where the team is going to come back with solutions that will solve for business problems. That's the third thing that we did. Fourth, we were super clear that it cannot be a setup that will coexist with our existing team. We have to take a separate location and then see how do you need to get that started from there. These are some of the basics that we have put in place. For us, we come from an organization which has got about 7 plants, 5 different business units. So therefore, things were much more decentralized. Step one was to bring people under one roof. We have got 2 centers, one in Chennai, one in Mumbai. Then bring in one way of doing transactions. That will help us to know that where do you stand and how do you want to go about it. On day one, we were very clear, we are not going to start with this by saying how many headcount you are going to reduce. Even today, we are very clear that's not the objective for what we started. We were also very clear, well, automation is super important to achieve this goal. That's not going to come as the step one. The step one is centralize and standardize and then automate. This actually helps us to understand where are we today and what journey we want to pursue and how do you need to stitch the automation requirement to what we wanted rather than having something ready-made and try to fit in for that. Some of the other pitfalls normally people undermine is the entire change management process. It means it starts from the people. Suddenly if I have to ask somebody who's working in a Baddi or a Goa plant or a Baroda plant and come back to Mumbai, they feel, boss, I'm not required in the company and that's why I'm asked to do this kind of a job. It's important that we value employees, and fundamentally we believe being an employee-run organization, it actually goes even more a step higher as to why is it important for employees to have this experience. It's important to tell the leadership team that, hey, going and having a stint at some part of time in your career in a CBS is equally important as a role that you would do in any part of the other verticals. It's going to be learning, and also, it's also going to be contributing for your own career and for the company. Finally, when we want to, therefore, what is the measurable outcome? Somebody asked for a domestic setup and somebody for us, which is just $1 billion organization, we are not a conglomerate. What is going to be the ROI? It's not going to be cost. We felt getting data at one source is going to be super powerful. Today, we are already seeing the benefits of it. Some of the way we set it up is even finance, we have now divided this into O2C, R2R, P2P, and an analytics vertical has been set up within the CBS. The idea is they are able to now throw back by saying, hey, look at this data. These are some of the things that is probably out of way, and can you go back and check with your business on what needs to be done. So that is probably the way I would see an ROI for this project. I think a single cost saving that you can get as a business project from your shared service is multi-crore rather than 10 people cost or 15 people headcount that you'll try to save from this. So overall, to summarize, have a large vision, a bold vision. Don't get bogged down by the fact that I'm a small organization, I can't do it. If you think it is something that can cut across various verticals of organization, it's really possible. Have milestones and goals which is beyond cost. I think the analytics that this function can throw up is invaluable and can be taken into multiple decision-making levers. Change management is super important, and please be super people-oriented. That's in a nutshell that I would like to say, and I do believe it can be catalytic to transformation.
Thanks, Kalesh. And because something about the change management and all that of a different type, everybody would have gone through. So, but we'll come back to you maybe after some time. So I will turn to Richard now. Richard, yours is massive organization in terms of sheer scale of manufacturing, logistics, transportation, and managing a huge dealer network, sales network across. What has been your experience when you talk of your transformation journey, having consolidated operations at one place? What has been your key experiences about it, and how do you see your top-level management involvement in this whole process?
Audible? Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Thanks, Anand. That was a good introduction of Ultratech. So let me set a context here a little bit. So we are a captive F&A services. Now, the F&A as a whole, the cost of F&A in relation to the 70,000 crore turnover which we have, I think it goes into decimals, right? And when it comes to our captive center, we have further decimal places. Which means while we are very critical for the CFO, as a business, are we moving the needle for an EBITDA per ton or something like that? We are on the decimal places. So whatever we do for our finance function or we do optimization within the finance function, that actually doesn't move the needle too much. But what we do for the business, for example, somebody mentioned paid on time, with service cash discounting. So those are the things which we add value to the business. GST is one where decentralized versus centralized. We have full control on how much credit we take and bring it to zero differences. So those are the impact which moves the needle a bit for the business. Given this context, the most interested CXO is our CFO, and he's the strong sponsor. Beyond the CFO, it's a little difficult to attract attention because moving the needle is very important for them, and then you'll attract attention. So our sponsor is strong, and hence we've been able to do that. You're right, this is a large organization, there's a large volume. So there are three factors which drove this initiative for us. One was a compelling reason for the business per se. So we were, if I remember, we were around 75, 80 million tons in capacity. That was in FY18, which today we are almost reaching 200 by 2027. Have we not done this, and the scale of my accounting centers would have been 100 plus, to consolidate that and report out for the CFO would have been much, much difficult. So that was a main compelling reason, is to sustain the business growth. Second, at that point in time, there was legislation changes which were coming in, and GST was one of the biggest one. And if the government is centralizing, there's no reason why organizations should not centralize their compliances. And only then you can derive value from that, right? And you can derive value from the analytics of that also. So that was the second major reason. Third one was the view that my plant commercial, that my plant finance folks had to be partnering with the units to be the lowest cost producer. And that's been the mantra all across our group. And hence, to free their time, again, the accounting work, transaction works had to move on. So these compelling reasons enabled us, actually the sponsor, to move the processes here. So I think in a nutshell, that's what about it is.
Okay, good to hear that. And in terms of the measures of success, how do you, so one important thing that you highlighted was the growth enabling. This whole initiative was not only just to get in efficiencies, but also to prepare for the high speed scaling up of the main business. So on that, on the terms of your measures of success, how does it come from the top? My question is about the governance at the top. How does it come?
Okay, I'll put it like this. We have few M&As lined up, which are on the verge of approvals. So the expectation is, can we seamlessly integrate it with our existing capacity, with the existing team? And I think our team is ready for that. There are two acquisitions, so the expectation is, can we seamlessly do it? Earlier, you had to build a team, you had to send the team over there, you have to uproot it from their existing plant and send it to them. Hiring was difficult for them, but for us, it's very seamless. So around 25 million capacity, which is almost 15% of existing one, we can seamlessly absorb in terms of accounting. I think those are the very critical metrics which the organization would look at.
Good to know that. So, already proven transformation catalytic role by the SSC in the cases like this. So, building on further, can I ask Ajay, you to pitch in, and please do, we want to be benefited by your overall experience, not necessarily from the current role, but you have done in the past also for another large Indian or India headquartered multinational company, that is the Lawyers and all that. So why don't you take a shot at it and give your nuggets of wisdom?
Oh, thanks, Anand. I probably would start with basics. So far as the GBS is concerned, the labor arbitrage is given. I mean, that's something, whether it is a global or India organization. Audible?
No, audible.
So, the labor arbitrage is GBS or GCC, are we adding any value? Answer is no. The value addition actually starts after it is centralized, and what is it that we do differently to give the organization what they have the real objective behind setting up a GCC or a GBS. If I put key objectives behind that is, one, how would it help improving the overall visibility to this? We talked about one single source of truth. May not be one single, but can we get from one place the entire information which will help us drive decision making and all. So that's something which is one. How fast we can get the information, how fast we can take decision, it basically alluding to the speed of the performance and speed of the information, how we can get that. Improving the overall quality of what is being delivered. Because if you are delivering from 10 or 20 different decentralized locations, it's very difficult to define and derive the value and all, and the quality aspect. So that comes in that how we are delivering the quality to them. So it's not only about cost always, it's like speed and quality aspect. Then comes the cost. Finally, I mean, I know I'm sitting with CFO, definitely we need to talk about the value aspects as well. So again, excluding the labor arbitrage, we need to focus on how we deliver the efficiencies in the process through transformation. And transformation, in fact, we call transformation, but there are fundamentals to this as well. How much process is with GBS? Is it something which is a limited portion? Then the transformation and the value also would be limited. If we are delivering end-to-end, then the transformation can be really, really huge and can bring in more and more value addition to that. So that's something which is a transformation and can impact the overall organization, that how definitely they can look at their own processes and transform their own processes as well. So it's always about how GBS is earning a seat. I'm trying to link everything together by delivering speed, cost, quality to the organization and gain the trust of the overall organization. Then they get the seat in the boardroom that what value GCC brings in, and they further entrust the confidence in GCC and putting more and more work and expand the scope of services to that. It's like both ways. We need to deliver the services and the value to the organization, what organization looks at it. Else, this remains as a mandate which comes from the board, but the people or the business leaders will always keep on asking question, what benefit would you bring to me? And particularly, this is, in fact, is very tough question to answer when you are transferring work from India to India. There you have to minimum call about 30%, 40%, only then they would be like interested in this. Otherwise, they want to maintain their own kingdom, so to say. That's something which they don't want to pass it on to. But broadly, it's up to us how much transformation and value we can deliver to the organization.
Thank you. Building on to that, I think you made a very good point of the seat at the table has to be earned, whichever table you are talking of. And who, other than Sushil Kedia, can explain it better through his experience where how they started and how this whole thing is turning into a great capability for Tata Steel. Can you share some of your ideas?
Yeah, thanks Anand for that. Thanks Anand for that question. I think the catalytic transformation journey for us has been quite interesting. And the question that you mentioned on the seat at the table, I will try and explain this with a sporting analogy and take you back to February 1999 at the Firozshah Kotla, when an Indian spinner claimed 10 wickets to fame. No prizes for guessing it, it was Anil Kumble. And if you look at the statistics of Anil Kumble, he claimed 10 wickets, out of which 5 wickets were claimed by himself, which means he either got the batsman bowled or LBW, while the other 5 were actually taken when somebody was catching up, right? So I think the seat at the table, the GCCs, gone are the days when GCCs have to go back to the board and claim a seat at the table. So if you have to claim to fame, or if you have to come to glory, the boards have to give that seat to the GCCs at the table. And therefore that transformational shift is happening. As far as catalyzing transformation for us is concerned, when we envisaged this, we said strategically this will be the hub from where all transactions will happen. And all our future M&A deals, like Richard said, will happen from here. So in the last 18 months, we have done 8 mergers of listed and unlisted entities. And from the day 1 of the merger, we were delivering the transaction processing from the GCC. So I think that's the main power that we had envisaged at some point in time when these mergers were not even on the cards. So I think that's the kind of power that we have delivered. And now what we want to do is sort of move from doing things right to doing the right things. So that's the journey from efficiency to effectiveness is what we want to travel. And that will be our transformation journey. And we have never and we will never latch on to this bandwagon of technology. So when the whole world was asking in terms of how many RPAs did your GCC have, we did not have any, but we were not bothered. So we were doing changes at the root level. So we had, with the acquisition of Chorus, some 150 plus entities across the group, and we were closing at T plus 25. We were one of the first companies to sort of implement SAP Central Finance in India. And today all our 150 entities are plugged in with one SAP Central Finance. We said we will create a new experience for our stakeholders. And we became the first company in the country to bring in virtual reality in the field of corporate reporting. If you happen to visit our website, you will see our annual report in virtual reality. So this is how we have transformationally changed the way we have looked at the problem statements. So it was the problem that we were solving for the business rather than, so we were focused on the what rather than the how.
Wonderful. And just taking on to you, Tarun, you have heard all 4 of them, and you bring a unique experience of either to being in the multinational environment, and now the environment has changed, and another large steel manufacturing company of very admired, one of the most admired companies of the recent times. And your shared services have also had their own share of turbulence, if I can use the word, in the past. Today, how do you see it, and what kind of transformation that you are still progressing with? Some ideas.
Sure. So Anand, first of all, thanks for the question. Now, let me put a situation like this. So imagine we are talking about a manufacturing company which has their plant in tier 3, tier 4 cities. Maximum employees are working in that company from last 15, 20 years. And we have a third generation promoter, which is under 30 years. So imagine what all three dots we have to connect it when we talk about transformation from our GCC. Expectation from promoters, why we can't work the way Amazon is working. Expectation from employees, we are perfectly working from last 20 years, why we want to change. And processes, when we talk about anything and everything, whether it's come on compliance front or change front, why that cannot be done yesterday, why we need time for that. So, as you have seen, I've worked in different organizations, different point, and at a different maturity. But when I talk about JSP, the idea is not only bringing a basic transformation, but also looking at ownership piece. So days are gone when GCC or SSC used to go and talk about, okay, we are going to partner with business, we are going to deliver this part of the work. Now the thing have come up where business is talking about either you have to drive it or we will drive it. And if you want to drive it, why you should be driving, what you are going to bring on the table. So yes, as we said, it is actually a negative labor arbitrage because you want to move people from tier 3 cities to tier 1 city if you want to. And then at an efficiency front, as Ajay also talked about, unless and until you talk about 25-30%. So being an Indian, it's always dil mange more. So your CFO wants, boss, what you bring on the table exceptional as a 20-25% of efficiency, and how your systems are working smoothly. So with keeping those things in eyes, and what I can foresee, in coming days, GCC is going to be mirror of HQ. So now, the way headquarters contain the power, the same way GCC, based on their delivery, based on the data, based on the connect, they are able to connect with the business. We are currently expanding big time, and from the audience, I got a question, how we can take an opportunity for getting global business into India. So imagine where our global businesses are mature enough compared to Indian businesses in process terms. So for that, we have to give that comfort to the management, how our processes, whether term of efficiency or delivery or automation, is best in class, which they are foreseeing for next 2 years, 3 years for their global entities. So based on bringing those transformation into the picture, as we talk about employee as a key pillar, how we are making our workforce ready for GCC. So it's a big shift. And why I'm saying this, it's not about delivery. It's about developing a capability. So it's again an internal fight where you have to make a mindset change of your team that initially they talk about this is my role, but there's no limit to the role now. It's about extreme ownership, delivering result. So that we have to do it, and then we are able to get a seat in the board based on our deliveries.
Wonderful. So I just want to add, Anand, what Tarun said, and Ajay also alluded to that. It is very important that for India headquarter operations, there is no concept of shared retain, which in traditional GCC is that this is the activity which will happen at GCC and this will happen at retained. So everything has to happen at the GCC. So there's no retained organization. You have to take complete ownership of the end-to-end process. And that's what the expectation from the GCC is. If it is interacting with the external stakeholders, you have to drive.
So as we also have been listening this term that GCCs have to be the digital twin of the so-called headquarter. Okay, but that is more applicable in a global context and all that. But here, you are all side by side, literally, most of the time. Many of the functions and operations, they happen like that. And so a lot of evolution happening. In fact, we used to sometimes in the past recommend that there has to be a greenfield location for an SSC and all that. Those are all concepts are being challenged now afresh.
And Anand, just to take 10 seconds, so if I talk about this, last month we were conducting vendor roadshow at our plant. It means plant people are not going to connect with any vendor. It's about extreme ownership starting from PR till payment. Whatever is there, we are connecting with vendor. Even at our plant, we are having a vendor roadshow where vendors are being invited and we are front-ending them from the business side. So it's
Wonderful. That's great to hear. Is there a Mentimeter question or we can skip that? Okay, because I was told. Anyway, so just building on.
10 seconds if I take on this value which we are talking about. I think we talked about this value in the last couple of panel discussions as well. When we are supporting from India to India entities, the spelling out of value is even more important. The business leaders always look for what are you doing for us. So we really need to call out what benefit or value we are generating for the organization, to the dealers. I mean, since I'm part of Tata Motors, I can talk about to the dealers, how we are benefiting the vendors, how our end customers are getting benefited and how we are contributing to it, apart from the monetary value. So we really need to touch their hearts and touch their brain when we are spelling it out value. So that's the power of how we kind of project these things as well. That's also is important. You may call it as a marketing aspect, but this is the fundamental when we have to support these stakeholders or customers and all.
So, in a way, what is coming out from many of you at least, and you, Richard and Kalees, you may want to add here is that the transformation that we are talking about here in the India context has no boundaries. Unlike many other GCCs where we talk of end-to-end and beyond my domain and influencing upwards, influencing downwards and all that. Since you are still a little younger in your journey, how do you see it? Is it ring-fenced or is it all across?
See, active collaboration is super critical. Eventually, the moment you try to say, make people feel that I put you on a punishment posting by putting into a shared service, it's not going to work. That sets up the culture and tonality in which we want to work. What we felt is keeping this as inclusive, where today we have a finance leadership team. The finance leadership team is represented by the head of CBS also, who's part of it. Any activities that we need to solve for, it is co-solved. If there is a challenge in supply chain finance that needs to work with business, they involve the shared service team also. Similarly in sales finance and similarly in business analytics. So I don't think we need to put ring fence or guardrails between how do you want to influence or how do you want to take it out. But what is important is having measurable metrics. I think typically, fundamentally, what we miss out when we do this is we don't have measurable metrics. Measurable metrics are largely related to a SLA or a turnaround time and we limit to that. But I think the moment you have a clearly defined goal sheet, which says what is that I want from my shared service function. It is beyond, I think we are living in a day and age. SLA and TAT is automated and it is par for the course. We need to look at what are the other value adds that needs to come from. What are some of the specific analytics that you need them to give it? What are specific red flags that you want them to raise on a periodic basis? Will make it much more inclusive and meaningful when we look at the larger ecosystem. Fundamentally, today we have also put this in a manner where the head of shared service is someone who does not only understand finance, but understands finance, understands business, understands IT. So that makes it a very good combination. Tomorrow, if my business leader needs something, he can give a call to this person directly and understand what's happening. It doesn't need to go through a process hierarchy and it cuts off time and brings in efficiency.
Wonderful. So, Richard, how does it work in your case if you want to actually make impact of transformation end to end, beyond the boundaries, if at all, of shared service and all that? What has been your experience?
Yeah, I think Sushil and all mentioned about boundaryless working and everything is a responsibility of the center. We are halfway through that journey today. There are things which fall between the gaps still. I'll give you certain examples. So when we were closing books of accounts, there there were roles and responsibilities that my retained organization will do, my shared service will do. But there were things which were falling in. And there was constant question coming up, are you guys not reviewing it? So that's when the CFO came in and said, can you take up the controller's role partially also? And we tried doing that. So there are two things missing in us. One is a concept of GPOs, in the sense that I have a person who's leading my controllership from the manufacturing side and the marketing side. But the end-to-end KPIs are not yet aligned. When I say end-to-end is, paid on time is an end-to-end. Today, 80% of the credit period time which is available is consumed by my factory. I get maybe 10% of that time, but still we try and make it on time jointly. Now that is visible today, but the moment the CFO sets in a KPI which is jointly for the shared service and the commercial head over there, I think the paid on time and the discounting would zoom up drastically.
Thank you. Thank you for being so transparent. And we are in the interest of time. First of all, once again, compliments to the audience for active participation in this poll on the Mentimeter. But here is a clear winner to the question. What strategies have been effective in getting sponsorship and commitment of the board? And it says aligning transformation initiatives with the company's strategic vision. So thank you very much. And so the audience, you have earned your another chance of asking questions. And I will have a last word for 30 seconds. And this will be my 30 seconds, not Rakesh's 30 seconds. Okay. So before that, please, if any questions, please raise your hand and mic will reach you. There, please. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So I have a very quick question. So I heard like Tarun mentioned about transition of power to shared services similar to the HQs. However, the reality is a little different at the moment. So how do we see the transition of power to the extent of enabling decision making for the shared service centers happening in the current, as even there are different setups having at different maturity levels, but still in general, the empowerment is limited is what generally we see in shared service centers making decisions, key decisions. So how do you see this transition happening in near future?
I probably could not follow the
I think the question is around how do you empower a shared service team and ensure that the decision making is not held back? Was that around it?
That's correct. Correct.
So, if we talk about from the SSC point, and what I understand the question, you're talking about how we empower the SSC from a GCC point. See, first of all, important is to build a connect and relationship with your counterpart. Give a comfort. The counterpart will only open with you, your customer will only open with you when he has or she has a comfort with you. Then talk about, normally what happens, I've seen people get very defensive whenever there is any challenge talked about. So looking at the new Gen AI tools which are there, get a skill set of that, help the management or the counterpart with relevant information which is relevant to take him decision at that point when you are giving him. See, we have data, but the challenge comes when you provide the analysis later and it is of no use to him. So yes, by increasing the pace and by enhancing your skill set, you would be on the upper side and then only you can get a comfort from a customer. It means getting more business from them and but side by side we are becoming from SSC to GCC.
I think if I can add to what Tarun said, Tarun had summarized it well. See, fundamentally it's a culture. I think it's an organizational culture that you need to be clear. Are you going to be an organization that works on deviation and exceptions, or it's an organization that's going to work on designed out rules and exceptions are going to be pretty limited? Now, if that is not a tone that is set from top, it's very difficult for a GCC function to figure out how do they operate. They are one part of the organization, they are not the only organization, right? So it's a tone from the top that needs to be set right as culture, that deviations are not going to be part of life. Yes, it's good at a point of change or a starting period where you can allow it, but going forward, it needs to be rule-based. The moment you deviate from rule-based, life will be very tough for everyone because there is always a good reason for an exception. So empowerment comes only when you ensure that the culture is set right and you ensure things move towards rule-based and not basis deviation.
Good points. So before we wrap up, 10 seconds to each of the panelists for one quick success mantra. And Ajay, you are raising hands, so first you.
Just adding to what he said, so top management, mandate is important, but particularly for India to India businesses, one big success factor if you want to have for transitions, please get the right person on the board talking to the business leaders who understands and speak their language. If you're talking to the supply chain head, and if you go shallow without the process knowledge, nobody would give you a seat in front of him. So you need to have the right person talking to the right people in their language. That's the biggest success factor.
So we'll have to quickly wrap up. Each one, please, 10 seconds, your quick success mantra for the audience. Anyway, any can.
So I'll go first. So my success mantra will be fail fast, learn faster, simplify with speed, so that you are able to create a delightful experience at all touch points.
Wonderful. Anyone wants to? Yeah, Richard.
You go ahead. A quick one. I would say the division of power should still remain. The concept of retained organization and center should still remain. There is a huge concentration of transaction at the center, and you need somebody outside the center also. Otherwise, you lose the measurement concept also. Yeah, that's it.
So from my perspective, the key factor is understand what your stakeholders or customers want and put that into action.
Tarun.
From my side, I would say it should be from both sides, you and customer should be on the same page. What you are going to deliver and what he's demanding should be on the same page. Second, important, look for one thing. So when I say one thing, it means don't prioritize 15 different things. First, understand what is that one thing for that quarter for success of your GCC, and everything should revolve around that.
Yeah, I think while process systems, IT, technology are all important, I think the success is going to depending upon people and how do you handle people. That's going to be the underlying thing. If you handle people well, set the expectation right, clearly define what are you expecting from them, half the journey is already started and won.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Go back to.
So that was the last of the technical sessions about leadership insights. Thank you very much, everyone, but please stay for a moment. I'd like to request Anand Maheshwari to give away the first memento to Kaleeswaran Arunachalam, please. Kulkarni, SVP and Head Worley Enterprise Services to please come up, Sandeep, to give away a memento to Ajay Wadhwa. Requesting Abhinav Goyal, VP Strategic Initiatives SSF Global to please come to give away memento to Tarun Aahi. Jaideep Agarwal from Warner Brothers Discovery for a memento for Sushil Kedia. Now Shida Sukali, Director Global OPEX and Continuous Improvement, Alcon Global Service, for a memento to Richard. Many thanks all panelists and the moderator as well. We can have a group photograph for the session.